Yeah. Hello.
Hey, Coach. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead, you guys.
Sean, what do you like most specifically about Marshawn Lattimore and maybe the attitude that he's brought into these matchups, primarily going against Mike Evans?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a division team, so obviously we see him twice a year, but it's not just Tampa Bay. I mean, when you have a corner like Marshawn who week in and week out, is given certain assignments, that's obviously a plus. He's competitive. He's driven. I mean, you've got two really good football players, extremely good athletes that obviously both are competitive, and it's why it's always a battle.
When you're in these one-game seasons like this, does it give you more flexibility as a defense to have someone who's had so much success against Mike Evans in this matchup? Does that give you the ability to just be more mobile?
I think the common sense answer, it has nothing to do with the playoffs. It's you want good players. That's part of the reason why you're in the playoffs. And part of the reason Tampa's in the playoffs is because of a talented player like Mike Evans. And part of the reason we're in the postseason is because of someone like Marshawn. And so they're part of the reason we're in this type of game. And so I think that when you look at the remaining teams right now, you find throughout the roster guys that are impactful. And I think that each time those guys compete, that there's always a back and forth to it. And I'm sure a great deal of respect by one another.
Coach, are there different ways that you can measure, the success of your running game? I know obviously first downs, touchdowns, yards per carry. Are there different ways you can say, all right, we had a successful day?
Yeah, I think the one number that can sometimes be deceiving sometimes is when you have a high rush total and you have a lead in the second half and you get into your 4 minute and so you can have 32 runs, but your yards per carry might not be what you wanted. So, your run efficiency measurables would be, those first and second down numbers. What do they look like? Yards per carry. What do they look like? An efficient 3rd and 1 run is 1 or more yards. There's an objective and no different than a goal line situation. But I think that it's easy to say, hey, get 30 rushing attempts. And well, the important equation to getting to 30 rushing attempts is converting on 3rd down and, and having those opportunities. I'll give you a real good example would be Kansas City, in which we really struggled to stay on the field offensively. And when the game ended, I think we defended 90 some plays defensively, offensively, probably around half of that. And our 3rd down numbers weren't good enough. And so your play count drops dramatically. So that there's an efficiency overall in 1st and 2nd down that I think is extremely important.
Sean, defensively, do you feel like you guys have done a better job getting pressures during the second half of the season than the first? It seems like the rate theirs went up a little bit. And what's the impact of that, Ben? Just having that go.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think clearly not just in pass rush, but I think we've improved throughout the course of the season defensively, and that's served us extremely well, because I would say that in a number of games, man, we've leaned on how we're playing defensively. As a play caller, there's a feel for what we're doing defensively that obviously impacts how I call or how we call a game. And yes, from a hurries, pressures, production standpoint, we talk about that tying in with the coverage. those things go together. And do I think as the seasons progress, we've seen those numbers increase? I would say yes. And I think we've seen fewer deep balls, some of those early challenges we had that we always talk about this race to improve, because there's little time. If you're only talking about 16 games there, you don't have 7 weeks to get better. It's quickly that sense of urgency. And we've been able to do that.
When you are getting that feel from the defense, you mentioned it changes how you might do things. What are some of the ways that it impacts how you call things?
Well, it's happened a number of times this year. Your risk ratio might change a little bit. We've had games where we've had some injuries at certain positions, and in Chicago, for instance, we might punt the football when we played at Chicago, and getting a feel for how we're playing defensively on that side of the ball. In Carolina, with everything that happened with the running backs, we were going to be a little bit smarter relative to it. It's all risk driven relative to turnovers, relative to all of those things, and trying to play the game on their side of the field and understanding field position. And the best example to its extreme would be the unique situation at Denver, in that all of a sudden they're playing a game without a quarterback. And prior to the game, you start thinking about, all right, here are the things that we can't do. We're going to be in punt safe. Every time they punt the ball, we're going to expect a fake. Every time they kick off, we're going to expect an onside kick. Every time they kick a field goal or PAT, we're going to expect. And then offensively, we're going to be smart about what we do third down wise. And so there was a game where I don't know how many times we threw it, but that would be the extreme example in understanding how to win that game.
It was announced that you'll have 3,500 fans in the stands for Sunday's game. Cam Jordan said the other day that those 3,000 fans, that was probably like the loudest, most energy you probably heard from the fans there. Did you notice any of that? The impact of the fans in that playoff game, that first playoff game against the Bears?
That's a good question. I don't know if I noticed it. There certainly seemed to have there was an ambient noise that was a little different. What was the World Cup soccer tournament? Where was that held? Where they had the Longhorns?
The Vuvuzelas in South Africa.
Yeah, maybe we give those out as playoff gifts, and try to use those during the third down situations. If you're old enough, you'll remember that World Cup. I think that was all you heard.
John, I'm curious, just having played the Bucs in week 1 and then in week 9 in the game that, you guys kind of took control pretty quickly. Do you spend much time looking at the film in those games just relative to how much maybe the Bucs have changed throughout the season, or do you spend more time maybe looking at more the last 4 to 5 weeks, if that makes sense?
This is going to give you an example of not just this game because it's the playoffs, but all of those games last year, and in Todd's case, defensively, all of the Jet games 3 years ago. So his defensively, looking at their defense, every one of their games in the cut-ups from New York, Tampa last year, Tampa this year, obviously that would include 4 Saints games. So that's a lot of snaps. I think following along the lines of that question, a little differently offensively, in that you're studying, I don't want to use the word a hybrid, Bruce and Byron and Tom and those guys there have done a great job of combining and putting together what represent their offense this season, and that's been impressive. And you've seen that operate more and more efficiently and more explosively than ever in these last 6 weeks. And so you don't necessarily have that same 3-year, if you will, pattern of offense because of the changes they've made. But that's a little bit of how we would study. I know that we're studying every one of their games this year offensively, and it's not like you can reference, and you can reference to some degree maybe some things that either Bruce or Tom have done when they weren't together. But I think in that case, it's a lot of this year.
Sean, how big is it to have Deontay Harris back and healthy and just playing at the level he is? And how difficult do you think it is for teams to game plan for a guy like him?
Yeah, I think he's electric, and you just start in the return game, and we know the field position battle is important, especially in the playoffs. But it's not just a cliche. It's the yards equal points, and so we're defending and playing for every yard, and I think that the things he provides for us offensively as well give us some good opportunities.
Sean, I know you talked plenty this week about the aging gracefully of Brady and Breeze. I'm just curious. I mean, how did you feel when you were 43 or 42? And I mean, how crazy it is, just maybe relative to how you felt.
Look, it's a great testament to their work ethic, their attention to detail, and it's rare. I saw, I don't know where I saw this, but I want you to just picture a current photo of Drew and Tom and then George Blanda. And I think it's dramatic. And obviously if any one of us looked at our grandparents, or if my dad or mom if they were alive, would be in their late 90s. When I've seen pictures of my parents in their 20s, they looked older. But I think with what those two guys are accomplishing and what they have accomplished is a better way to say it. And at the age they're at, we talk constantly about the physical, and what's hard to appreciate is the emotional stress and challenge week in and week out, because they know what has to go into a good week of preparation, and they know that in the attention to detail, the amount of film, the amount of after practice snaps with players, the amount of corrections, along with all the things relative to taking care of their bodies in the off season, in season, sleep, nutrition. Those are Olympic type training methods that, you normally would get during a period of, call it, 8 to 10 years. And obviously these two are different.
It'd be a lot more impressive if they were playing at 42, 43, if they were smoking Marlboro Reds in the locker room at halftime and down in a Coke and going back out there on the field.
Len Dawson. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey Marcus, how have you seen this Tampa offense kind of change as from week 1 to week 9 to the film that you're watching now of their recent games?
They've been taking a lot more explosive shots down the field. Their game has evolved. They got a lot of different people involved with AB and 14 back and number 10. So you just see them with a more explosive offense and taking shots. So that's what I've seen from week 1 to now.
Next one's from Amos Morale.
Yeah, kind of following up on that, you guys have, really seemed to kind of cut out the big plays that opponents were, when they try to take shots on you. Just how much confidence do you have that you guys are able to go out there and kind of eliminate some of those opportunities?
Starts in practice. We focused on eliminating plays in practice, and you see it translate in the game. So we just take it one play at a time, and that's our mentality. One play at a time and eliminate the explosives, and that's how you win games.
Next one's from Amy Just.
I know in season, in the moment, it's hard to realize the magnitude or the history of the moment, with Drew turning 42 today and Tom Brady being 43. Is that, like, can you, how do I word this? Appreciate the history of the moment, just knowing that these are two guys that you grew up watching and you're playing in a playoff game where both of them are still playing in their early 40s?
I mean, it's just a blessing to be able to actually play with Drew and go up against Tom Brady. Just as young as I am, just, growing up watching him, now I'm actually playing with and against. It's a great opportunity, and I mean, I appreciate it. I know everybody else appreciates it as well.
Next one's from Luke Johnson.
Marcus, how important when you're looking back at those first 2 games against Tampa was the pass rush and y'all limiting them the way you did and the turnovers you guys forced? Like, I know that's you guys aim to play kind of a complementary style there, but how important was it specifically in those 2 games?
Takeaways are a major part in every game. Being able to take the ball away, being able to disrupt the passer, that's all complimentary, and that helps you all around. So being able to rush the passer helps us in the back end, take the ball away. We got great guys that are covering, rushing, and that just contributes to us getting those takeaways and stopping them on offense.
Next one's from Nick Underhill.
Marcus, just being on the field and from your perspective, is it as impressive to you guys the way that Marshawn is able to play against Mike Evans consistently as it is to everybody else, and like just the way he kind of erases them?
Marshawn locks up everybody. It's not just Mike Evans. Marshawn goes out there, and everybody in our back end does one play at a time, and we try to go out there and lock everybody up. We're not just worried about Mike Evans. We're worried about every single person on the offense. We work as a team, and that's how it works. The line does their job, the DBs do their job, the linebackers do their job, and when we all play with confidence, it's hard to beat us.
Next one's from Andrew Doak.
Marcus, maybe if you think back to like the first time that you ever met Drew Brees, whether it was in the locker room or whatever the moment was, I mean, is there an aura that like Tom Brady has to him, like a presence when he's on the field, maybe similar to Brees, that when you guys play him, there's like an excitement level just to be playing against somebody that's one of the game's greatest?
I mean, I'm not really shell shocked, or I'm not like, when people are famous or anything, I'm not shy to that. It doesn't really matter. Somebody's somebody. He's a great player, but when I go out there, I'm ready to dominate him, and that's just how it is. I'm not gonna go into a game like, oh, this is Tom Brady. I'm going to the game like, this is a quarterback. I got to stop him. This is my defense against their offense. I'm not looking at them like, oh, I'm scared. I'm not scared. We're not scared of nobody. I'm not scared of anybody. But so when I go out there, it's like it's just another quarterback to me.
Is it, just to quickly follow up, I mean, is there I imagine as a competitor though, does it add like some extra juice or just any type of intensity when you play someone like that? I mean, I'm sure when people play Drew Brees, they get that extra level of excitement maybe. Is that?
No, I'm intense. I'm intense versus everybody. You don't pull up just because of somebody that may not be in the Hall of Fame or something like that. you gotta go out there every week willing to dominate. You don't go out there just because it's Tom Brady and elevate your game. Your game should already be elevated. So when I go out there, I'm already playing to play at a high level, not just because of him, but because I gotta do what I have to do for my team, but not just because I'm going against Tom Brady.
Next one from Luke Johnson.
Marcus, just personally, how do you feel like this year went for you? Do you feel like you've obviously with the team goals still in front of you, do you feel like you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish this year personally, in the regular season?
Personally, there's always more for me. I usually keep my goals to myself, but there's always more. I never just go into the season like trying to just shoot for this particular number. I shoot for a particular number, but then I try to exceed it. But I'm always trying to make myself better in any way it could be, and find my deficiencies and try to fix those, and just continue to get better. And that's what I feel like I improved on this year, is just finding the deficiencies, whatever they are, and get better each play and each game.
Last one's from Amy Just.
Yeah, last week was your first week back after missing a couple games with your injury. You played every snap, but how did it feel to get back out there after missing a couple games?
It felt great to be back out there with the team. You never want to be watching from the sideline, but I know my guys were going to hold it down, and that's what they did. They held it down, and there was no let off. That's just what we do, and that's what we preach in our DB room. Somebody goes down, next man up mentality, and that's what we have back there, and that's just kudos to my guys back there.
All right, we're all set.
Thank you.
Marcus. First one's from Jennifer Toland.
Hey, Duante. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How did it finally feel to be back on the field last week and obviously make so many contributions offensively?
It was a great feeling. I won't use the analogy that I used last week, but, it's just a good feeling to be back out there. It's a game that we love to play, a game that I love to play, so finally be able to get back out there after 6 weeks, it felt good.
Next one's from Ames Morale.
Yeah, what do you do, or what do you focus on as you're preparing to, try and go out and have a repeat performance like you did last week?
I'm just trying to make any contribution, whether it be offense or special teams. The end goal is to get a win, whether I got 7 catches or 0. The end goal is just to try to make an impact in whichever way possible. So, if I get 7 catches or however many catches, it'll be a good day. But if I get 0 catches and we win, I'm good with that too.
Next one's from Amy Just.
Yeah, you and Mike came back last week, and then Traquan could play this week after practicing. Just how big would that be for all of you? Just knowing that so many of you were on the IR at various points during the season, and you're primed to get almost everybody back.
Yeah, we got the gang back. We want to try to be as close to 100% as possible. So, with him coming back, that's almost us at full speed. So, it'll be good if he could play this week.
Next one's from Andrew Doak.
Hey, Deontay, I feel like the way that you performed this past game was kind of people's expectation for you earlier in the year, just being a bigger part of the offense. And I know injuries and whatnot all kind of played a factor in that. But I guess that game against the Bears, how much did that feel like what you kind of anticipated yourself this season, and what type of part you would be in the offense?
It's just a good feeling. You come into the season hoping that you have a bigger role and hoping that you make more plays than you did last year. So I think it was just a glimpse of what I can do, and so hopefully, as the season goes on and the years carry over, hopefully we could just see more of it.
Next one's from Jennifer Toland.
Deontay, I know you didn't play with Zach Trinner at Assumption, but what do you think of two Assumption guys being in this game on Sunday, and then not to mention Ashton up with the Browns?
Man, it's just a dream come true, you know. A lot of guys from that school. I mean, we only got 3 guys in the league, so, you know, to be able to play against somebody that went to a small Division II school, it's a blessing for both of us, really. Shout out my boy AG, too.
All right, we're all set, Deontay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.